Today we take a look at Charley Hull, who earned $2.4 million last season. She hit 70% fairways in regulation and 70% greens in regulation, top 15 putting. That'll get it done, and it'll see you some millions in the bank if you can do it. But since it's only reserved for the top elite in the world, let's take a look at her cause and effect, and let's see what you can try to emulate some things from it. At the very least, see why it works. And on a side note, I heard through the grapevine that Rory McIlroy might be joining LIV after all for the sum of $850 million. Let me know your thoughts in the comment below. Is it just hearsay, or can we expect him to be on a team playing 3 days a week in Bermuda shorts, earning close to $1 billion? And if you do like this, please hit that like, share, comment, subscribe, and as your support gets golf in the needy hands of children in Cape Flat, South Africa. But enough of that. Let's take a look at how Charley was able to earn $2.4 million big ones. So before we start diagnosing, I just want you to watch the swing over and over again, and her setup is her key to success. The way the golf swing works is usually the setup will predict the golf swing and vice versa, so you can't really change one without the other. Now it just so happens to be that some people's setup will cause a beautiful golf swing based on their body schematics. So we're going to keep that in mind in today's swing evaluation, and we're going to teach you about cause and effect based on setup and how she makes the swing work, which is a very powerful, very unique swing. But let's get started and focus on these couple things throughout the whole video to help you diagnose your issues when you are working with your golf coach, or if you're going to try and tackle this by yourself. Okay, so you'll notice on the right side of the screen, that green line is basically her setup line and is right where her arches of the heel go straight to the sky, and that is very important because that's showing us where her balance point should be in the golf swing, and we would like for that lower plane line to run closer to that, but this plays a big part for her because on the left side of the screen we can start to see why this will assist her to get more room to tilt. Now if you don't have enough room to tilt, her golf swing will kind of crash into each other, and the reason she needs to tilt is because of this exaggerated forward press, and this is something I really do not recommend for the average golfer. So if you are one that does this, really take a look at your tilting at impact and how the shaft lean is coming into impact with the driver. And think about it, we don't want the driver to have shaft lean because we're trying to hit up on it, so she has to do a couple things to allow her to hit up based on this setup. But for her it works because they just go hand in hand, and she grew up probably playing like this. But most of us don't have that lifestyle to practice day in and day out to make this work. Keep that in mind. And another way to check this, just so you know at home, if you take your shoulder tilt line, let's do this in green. If you take your shoulder tilt line, we're going to eyeball it here. We're going to try and eyeball where 90 degrees is, and let's just say it might be right there. Is that close enough? Ooh, that's close enough. So you can see that right degree from her shoulder tilt line. Her golf ball placement is clear out of her right shoulder. Now when we have spacing involved and you got a forward lean, a couple things can happen with your setup, and you can see it's kind of happening to her. Her weighting seems stacked, like it's on her left foot a little bit too much, but again, this makes it work for her. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but we'll see how she has to make this thing work. So if this is you at home and you're looking at yourself and you're wondering, how come I just can't hit the golf ball as consistent as I would like, draw a shoulder tilt line to where you set up, draw it right around the center, close to 90 degrees as you can, and based on this setup, her golf ball should be 3 or 4 inches to the left side if she was a once a week player, because that makes it easier to time. We don't have to readjust much in our downswing, and when you can't practice a lot, you can be like Jekyll and Hyde out there. You don't know who's coming up. Okay, so we do know now that her setup will promote excess tilting at impact, so keep that in mind. Let's just go straight to the backswing, and we can see how well she takes that club back. So her hands go a little bit lower than that plane line. Now remember, this could be a camera angle issue. If this person was standing further back, we could probably see it right on that plane line. So I get that. We're limited to what we have. We're not a production company. I'm just pulling videos from wherever I can. But this will help us get the basic idea. We can see that the club face is slightly opening up to her spine angle, which is great. This allows her left shoulders to get slightly higher to create turn. So when your left shoulder raises up because you're rolling those forearms open, it relieves the tension on your left side, and as a result we can see that her hip turn, look at her hips, are not turning much, but she is getting a beautiful top position here with the amount of turn her shoulders get. So you can see how tight her hips are, but look at that shoulder turn, it is well past 90. The club shaft is almost getting to her perpendicular to the shoulder turn, so this is beautiful. There's no overswinging, and if we see on the right side of the screen, let's draw this in blue, and we can draw her new shoulder tilt. As she almost gets to the top, we can see that this left shoulder has indeed raised up. And if you don't believe me, give it a try. Stand up right now, get in your golf posture. Feel like you're rotating your arms to the right side, and your left shoulder will come up, and you will alleviate that tension on your left lat, which will allow you to turn more. However, it comes at a consequence, because now we have to have some excess shoulder tilt to counteract that. So don't try that on your own. I'm just giving you an idea to experiment with it. But at the top of her swing, let's keep going up. She gets that lead arm higher. Now remember, it's higher than her shoulder tilt. Now, how do we know it's higher than the shoulder tilt? Well, let's do this in yellow. Let's do the new spine angle. And the shoulder tilt is actually pretty good based on that new spine angle. She has slightly come up, but if that was her new spine angle, her left arm would be about here. So she has definitely raised it up outside of the shoulder tilt. But again, this works for her. The great thing about this is look at her butt of the club. If we draw a straight line down to the ground, we can see that is actually behind her centeredness of her heel. So this is really good, because now she has more time to drop that club down in the slot and get that club on that lower pink line to allow her to swing up to compensate for a slight forward press at the start of her swing. So let's take a look at that downswing. Let's erase that yellow line and keep that green line. Let's also erase that line. So, and that line. So now let's look at the motion of her triangle. So let's draw a quick triangle check, and this is patented. I should patent this triangle check, and we'll see now that triangle is pointing straight down there. Now the great thing about her is watch her hands. Her hands will go down. This is one of the hardest moves specifically with her, but what helped her out was having a higher left shoulder tilt, because it is just basically returning back to normal where it should be for that left shoulder tilt. And now will come a slight turn, and we can see those hands moving down towards the golf ball, but look at how quick she's already on that lower plane line. So her hands have met that lower plane line pretty close. But really quick, let's back up to the top and look at the left side of the screen. I'm going to draw a center line where that ball position is. So there's no way her upper body can go to this region, because if it crosses over to this region, she is going to be in trouble. That is where the shaft lean comes in with the driver. That's not good. So let's take a look at her motion. We'll draw an impact line to see what gets over there first. So we see the hip and the knees are kind of tied, and where's that center? That center stays right where that golf ball is, so she still gets her center squared up. However, now she's getting her tilting back where it needs to be, because her lower body had to drive left to allow the upper body to tilt. And as long as you keep your upper body back, now you have the correct posture to launch this golf ball up in the sky. And while I'm at it, let me just draw some other crazy arrows, but now let's clean all these up. Okay, now, so this is the key to her golf swing. We know she's doing a good job of getting those hands on the lower plane line. You can see that right shoulder is starting to tilt under, but watch what happens. She only has a few frames here to strike that golf ball, and you can see how close her hands are already on that center point. So what does she have to do? Let's watch this a couple times and see if you can notice. And I'll give you a clue. It has to do with that right shoulder. So where is her right shoulder going from this point on down on the right side? Look at that right shoulder. That right shoulder has to now all of a sudden tilt. That tilting serves for a couple of purposes. Now, if she was to turn from this position, her hand path would be much lower. But anytime you start tilting, you're going to rock. So the more you tilt this right shoulder down, the higher your hands will work, because they're getting pushed out and up. Now, why is she making her hands go slightly higher? To help strike up on the ball. And you can see that action there. So yes, she had to play slight catch up with her hands, but she did a really good job now of getting in the impact position. And if we take out all these lines, let's do our triangle check at impact. And this is why I really try to focus on setting up like this already. So there's a triangle check. It's really close to being centered. And where does that golf club fall into right at impact? Pretty close to being centered. So why would you try and set up in a different position when all the best players in the world, when they strike it, are in a similar position as she is now, with her shoulder tilt and turn? Those hands are most likely in the center, and the club shaft is also in the center. Now, the exaggerated tilting, you can see her path of her club is going where? Up to the sky. So this is how she gets that launch angle. She can only do it by doing what? driving the left hip and falling back with the right side. And why does she need to do that? Because of the forward press. So don't do the forward press. Please, please, please go check it and change it. It might feel weird, but you also might have to do some swing changes as well. And you can see the right side of the screen. We can see that excess tilting now, and the tilting allows that hand path to continue straighter as she releases the club naturally, and we can see now the body will turn and come on up. But let's just see how much she actually tilts her shoulders. So let's go to the top of her swing and do a quick rudimentary, is that even a word? I don't even know if that's a word. A rudimentary shoulder tilt level check. So we have 29 degrees. Right at impact, we can see all of a sudden we're going to go boom right there. Look at that shoulder tilt. All of a sudden that thing tilted down 30, let's just call it 38 degrees. That's a lot of tilt. Even the next frame over, we can see it's still tilted. It's obviously not as much as this next frame, but you can see how much she still has to carry down into impact. But remember why hers is so excessive, because she loses tilt in the backswing and has to increase tilt even more in the downswing to make up for that loss and her setup. So unless you can have a body like Gumby that you can stretch every day, that's not the right setup. But it works perfectly for her. So here's the case in point that I preach every video is do not try to emulate anybody you see on TV, because they have such unique motions that unless you know cause and effect, unless you know what you're looking at, unless you can figure it out on your body schematics, it's not going to work for you. It just is not. So your best bet is to go work with somebody near you who can help you and educate you based on you and your limitations. So I do hope that helps you. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Drop a like if you want to, subscribe if you like this type of stuff. We drop a video at least 4, 5, 6 times a week depending on my schedule, but I hope that helps you. I'll see you next time. Fairways and greens.